After the reunions in Ahsoka's penultimate episode, the series was positioned for a dramatic season finale. Baylan and Shin were out of the picture, and that left Ahsoka, Ezra, and Sabine with the singular goal of stopping Thrawn's return to the known galaxy. Unfortunately, they failed, and Thrawn got away, which means that he's ready to lead the Imperial Remnant and wreak havoc on the New Republic. While that's bad for the galaxy, it's good for Star Wars fans because it means there's a lot of stories yet to tell. The finale ended with a number of cliffhangers that set up a potential Season 2 or even leading directly into Dave Filoni's upcoming movie. Ezra made it back to the Star Wars galaxy, and he's sure to throw a wrench into Thrawn's plans, but there's also trouble brewing in Peridea. There's talk of unimaginable power, and it doesn't look like Baylan is planning on using that power for good. Ahsoka and Sabine are ready to stand up to him, but it probably won't be an easy task. In fact, it looks like the power that Baylan finds might set the foundation for the future of Star Wars. Here's how Ahsoka just set up Abeloth to make her debut in canon. Like Thrawn explained to his minions, time was his most valuable asset. The longer he could keep Ahsoka away from the Chimera, the better chance he had at escaping Peridea. So he sent everything he could to prevent her arrival. Thrawn sent mercenaries Baylan and Shin, and he dispatched TIE fighters, gunships, and night troopers. He even required Morgan Elsbeth, who had just been empowered by the Night Sister Mothers, to sacrifice herself and further delay Ahsoka. In the end, Thrawn thought he had succeeded because he escaped Peridea without Ahsoka following him. But little did he know that Ezra stowed away on the Chimera. The thing is, Thrawn also didn't know what happened to his mercenaries. He probably assumed that they were killed, but he would be wrong. After being abandoned by her master and losing against Ezra, Sabine, and Ahsoka, Shin cut her losses and joined up with the local thugs. More importantly, Baylan found what he was looking for. As many fans predicted, the power calling him was associated with the ones from the Clone Wars. Here's a quick refresher for context. In Season 3 of the Clone Wars, Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Ahsoka became trapped on a planet called Mortis. Except it wasn't exactly a planet, it was an ethereal realm, and there were 3 immortal beings living there: the Father, the Son, and the Daughter. Each of those figures represented different aspects of the Force. The Son and the Daughter represented the dark and light sides of the Force, while the Father represented a balance between his 2 children. The 3 Jedi were called to Mortis because the Father wanted to try and convince Anakin to take his place. But while they were there, the Son hatched a plan to overthrow everyone. After a betrayal, a murder, and a sacrifice, all 3 of the ones were dead. When all of that was over, Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Ahsoka returned to the galaxy as if no time had passed. Besides appearing in a mural in Star Wars Rebels, the Clone Wars Mortis arc was the only time that the franchise mentioned the Ones. But that doesn't mean they weren't important. In fact, the Ones being dead probably had a lot to do with the Force being extremely out of balance after the Clone Wars and throughout Palpatine's reign of the Galactic Empire. However, that's not the only problem with the Ones being dead. There was another Force entity that everyone forgot about, and she was called Abeloth. Currently, she has only appeared in Star Wars Legends, but it looks like she could soon play a part in Star Wars Future. For anyone not familiar with the character, Abeloth was an absolutely terrifying being. She started out as a helper for the Ones, and she was called the Servant. Over time, she earned a new station in life and became the Mother. In that role, she helped the Father keep balance between the Son and the Daughter, but there was a problem. The Mother was mortal, while the other 3 were divine beings. Fearing death and the thought of losing her family, the Mother acted rashly and tried to become a god by entering a Force nexus. There, she drank from the font of power and bathed in the pool of knowledge. In doing those things, the Mother gained the immortality that she desired, but she was permanently corrupted by the dark side. The pure evil she experienced transformed her into an evil entity called Abeloth. The Father was disappointed by the Mother's actions, but he had to protect the galaxy from Abeloth. So he took the Son and the Daughter, and they departed from their home, stranding Abeloth. Then they enlisted some outside help. The Killik Hives from Alderaan created massive technological artifacts, which were able to keep Abeloth imprisoned until there was a change in the flow of the Force. When that happened, the Ones would simply return, and with their combined power, they would defeat Abeloth and re-imprison her. That's how it went for thousands of years. But with the death of the Ones, the knowledge of Abeloth slipped into the shadows. In Legends, Abeloth appeared after Luke had established his new Jedi Order. The machinations of Darth Caedus awoke her from her slumber, and it took the combined efforts of the New Jedi Order and the Lost Tribe of the Sith to prevent her from taking over the galaxy. It was an extended fight, and they had to destroy many of Abeloth's avatars, but they eventually prevailed against her evil. Thus far, Abeloth has not been introduced into Star Wars canon, but there's a real possibility that it could happen soon. Throughout the whole Ahsoka series, Baylan claimed that a power was calling to him. There were multiple theories, but Baylan, finding statues of the ones on Peridea, confirmed that something ancient and extremely powerful was calling to him. The thing is, the ones were dead, so who was actually calling? The answer has to be Abeloth, and while that might sound like a pipe dream, it's not. Baylan described Peridea as a place of dreams and madness. Not only that, Peridea was a place of death and darkness. The Zepho ruled in the depths of time, and the ancient Night Sisters' kingdom was centered on the world. Even the Purrgil went there to die. The whole planet was a graveyard, encircled by a planetary ring made of Purrgil bones. For goodness sake, even the Night Sister mothers were afraid of something dark that was on the planet. The question is this: why is Peridea defined by death and darkness? It might all be a coincidence, but that's not likely. It would make much more sense if the ones originated on Peridea and trapped Abeloth there before traveling to the Star Wars galaxy. Now she must have awakened and is ready to wreak havoc. That's why the Night Sister mothers would be so eager to flee, and why darkness is running rampant once again. Knowing all of that makes Abeloth's canon introduction a real option, and it's even possible that she could be Star Wars' main villain for the foreseeable future. Like Palpatine sensed, Abeloth could be the dark entity hiding in the shadows for a long time. She could give Baylan power in a potential Ahsoka Season 2, but it could go even further than that. Some fans have theorized that the Dawn of the Jedi movie could be set on Peridea, as it documents the origins of the Force. Having a villain like Abeloth would give that movie immediate traction from Legends continuity. In addition, Abeloth could be the main villain in Rey's movie. As she rebuilds the Jedi Order, having an evil like Abeloth would be a great way to build on what Rey went through with Palpatine's resurrection. Abeloth's appearance could also explain why Rey was so powerful. Besides being Palpatine's granddaughter, she might have been imbued with special power by the Force itself. In The Last Jedi, Snoke said that darkness was rising and that the light would have to rise against it. Everyone assumed he meant the First Order, but maybe he was actually talking about Abeloth. If her darkness was rising, then Rey would eventually have to rise up and fight against that evil. That might be a bit of a stretch given the current information, but it could help to explain why Rey was so powerful with minimal training. But what do you think? Why is Peridea a place of darkness and death? What power was calling to Baylan, and could it really be Abeloth? If so, how could she change the future of Star Wars? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.